All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast. If you've been enjoying our content, please make sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate all your support. Diving into Michigan a bit here and just their path in the NCAA tournament as well as the ceiling. I think everyone's probably in agreement the ceiling is a title for the Michigan Wolverines this year, and the floor. When do we may see them getting knocked out of the tournament if they do? Marcus, I'm going to kick things off with you to dive into Michigan real quickly.
Yeah, like you said, I think the ceiling is obviously a title. One seed, Ben is basically the number one team in the country for the entirety of the season. The front court they have has been dominant all season long on both ends. So no reason why a title isn't the ceiling. As for the floor, I really don't see this team losing before the Elite Eight. I think it would be pretty insane if they did, just based on the path that they have. Like they're not losing to Howard, of course, in the first round. They've got Georgia or St. Louis in the second round. I don't really think either of those teams can put up enough of a fight in the second round against them. The front courts of those teams just don't have enough. And then, the third round, the Sweet 16 would bring, likely Alabama or Texas Tech, maybe Akron or Hofstra can sneak through, but none of those teams have the front court either. And Michigan's struggles have really been taking care of the basketball, high pressure defenses, and none of those teams are really going to do that to you. It's not really the same Texas Tech defense right now. Alabama's certainly not going to be a team that turns you over. They're going to want to just get into a track meet with Michigan, and maybe Alabama could just outshoot them in that game. But I just think that overall, by the end of the game, Michigan's going to get enough dunks and layups that it wouldn't really matter, enough offensive rebounds. So, I think the first time they could really lose is in that Elite Eight, potentially against a team like Iowa State or Tennessee, maybe Virginia as well, teams that have a little bit better front courts, the ability to limit the offensive glass a little bit, a little ability to turn the pressure up. Like a team like Iowa State can really hound you on the ball. We've seen Elliott Cadeau really struggle with turnovers in the past, so I think that's an intriguing one. Tennessee, of course, has a really good front court on the glass, so maybe they can, get on the glass, limit second chances, get offensive rebounds of their own, and even out the shot volume battle. Virginia, of course, we've seen them with their rim protection of Onyenso and Grunlow. So I think those three teams could potentially knock them off in the Elite Eight. I still would expect Michigan to be a team that advances to the Final Four. But, I think the soonest they could go down, their absolute floor to me, based on the bracket, is the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't see it happening before the Elite Eight. That Elite Eight matchup is going to be a little interesting. I mean, I would still favor Michigan, but definitely some teams that can knock them off in the bottom half of this region. Cody, I'd like you to dive into your ceiling, your floor, if it's different, and just their path overall.
Yeah, I mean, pretty similar thoughts for me. I don't think there's a chance they can lose in the first weekend. I mean, I think it's actual numbers wise, it's probably like a 5% chance, but I would view it as a little bit less than that. I don't think Georgia or St. Louis stand much of a chance in the second round. I mean, I think I'd view their floor as the Sweet 16, though. We've seen the upside of Alabama. We've seen them knock down shots at a super high clip. And they can space out the front court of Michigan. Maybe they just win like a mega, shot making battle. I mean, Bama would have to, keep Michigan under 40% on the glass, but that's going to be really tough for them to do because their front court's been their issue all year long. But Alabama has the ability to take down Michigan with their shot making and guard play, which has been, very volatile with this Michigan team, right? And ever since the LJ Cason injury, this Michigan team hasn't been as great. Mostly when they've been slowed down, like Marcus mentioned, and against like high pressure defenses. So maybe this isn't like the right matchup here in the Sweet 16 for Bama, but there is a world where they do lose before the Elite Eight. And like Marcus mentioned, with these Elite Eight matchups, like it does get kind of dicey with Michigan. Like I think Iowa State is probably the worst matchup for them. They're obviously the highest quality of team of the three teams that you mentioned. Like Virginia's front court and their rim protection can definitely match up. I would just kind of worry about some foul trouble with like DeRitter and maybe Onyenso and Grunlow pick up foul trouble because Michigan. I mean, they're probably the most dominant front line in the country as a committee. So it would definitely be tough for Virginia. And then Tennessee shot volume wise, can match up rebound for rebound. So they do have a chance. But yeah, the ceiling is obviously a title. But the way I view it with Michigan, I think we can all agree that the top three teams in the country are Duke, Arizona, and Michigan. And maybe you could throw Florida in the mix. I personally think Michigan is the least likely of these three teams to win a title. We've just seen a little bit too much volatility with them lately. We saw Duke give them an extremely tough time when they got slowed down when they matched up in DC in the second half. And that's kind of just been the theme with them. And even in the Big Ten tournament, they were slowed down by Purdue, a little bit by Wisconsin. Ohio State slowed them down almost like they had them on the ropes. Like they haven't played particularly well over the last week and a half to 2 weeks. So there is a world where, like I said, they can go down in the Sweet 16. But I think of the top three teams in the country, I think Michigan is the least likely to win the title.
Marcus, I just want to hear your thoughts real quick. Do you share that same thought that Michigan is the least likely of the three, or is there another team that you think may be less likely?
Yeah, I think so. Just because I really think that they have they're the most vulnerable against weaker opponents, at least from what we've seen. Like Cody just said, we saw them struggle with Ohio State at Northwestern. They had a real tough time for about 32 minutes of that game. And that was a team that, slowed the pace down, but really pressured them defensively, made them uncomfortable and forced them into some turnovers. So if they run into something like that, they're definitely in a live position to go home.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else to add before we sign off?
No, I mean, it just does kind of feel like there's a little bit too much pressure on Elliot Cadeau. Like when he goes to the bench, like who's really initiating offense at a super high level. I just don't really see it from guys like Gale or McKinney in the backcourt. Like they're more like secondary playmakers, shot makers on the wing, attacking closeouts, stuff like that. They're not initiating offense really. So, they can still win a title with the current roster they have. There's no doubt about that. But I think there are just a few more holes in their roster than with Arizona and Duke, a fully healthy Duke, because I would assume like Gungba's going to at least be back by the second weekend, and that makes them probably the best team in the country.
Marcus, anything from you?
No, I'm good.
All right. Some concerns, but definitely a title contender nonetheless. So don't panic if you're a Michigan fan. I think still third best shot at this thing is not too bad. But we're going to wrap things up here. As always, thank you for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.